Previously on the Fan of History, the Assyrian sources went silent for 7 years. And in this episode we'll try to reconstruct what happened in Assyria in the years 827 to 820 BC. So this is Events of the 820s BC, part 3, the Black Obelisk of Assyria. Welcome to the Fan of History. I am the Fan of History. I'm just a fan of history. I'm not an historian. So if you find anything that's wrong, tell me, and I like to learn. Please watch the earlier videos as well. Let's get into the action. So, in 827 BC, Shalmaneser III is Ashur's chosen king. The Assyrian Empire, before the sources went silent, it was the strongest state in the Near East, maybe even the strongest state in the world. Shalmaneser III has been the king since 859 BC, but now he's old and he might even be senile. He has not campaigned since 833 BC, but his enemies are defeated. But now they're noticing that the empire is not there anymore, or at least the empire's hand forcing them to pay tribute and beating them up is not there anymore. And in 827 BC, the field marshal, the Turtanu Dayyan-Ashur, controls the army. And there are two very important princes, Assurdaninpal and Shamshi-Ramman. This is the empire in green. It is large at this point. It is bigger than it has ever been during Assyria's 2,000-year-old history at this point. And super powerful kings, Ashurnasirpal II and Shalmaneser III, has ruled the empire since 883 BC. It is split into 12 provinces, and the governors and other nobles have gained a lot of influence compared to earlier. The capital is Kala, you see it on the middle of the map. And that's the Assyrian heartland between Nineveh, Kala and Ashur. There are, as I said, three powerful men, so let's meet them and talk about them. Dayyan-Ashur is the field marshal, and he has been around for a long time helping Shalmaneser. There are theories that he actually held control over the entire empire for a long time, but I think he was the trusted friend and underling of Shalmaneser III, and he's still there helping his old liege lord, even though Shalmaneser probably is senile at this point. There is the prince, the violent warrior prince, Assurdaninpal. And I imagine him as the second coming of Shalmaneser's father, Ashurnasirpal. And the picture is of Ashurnasirpal and not of Assurdaninpal. Assurdaninpal does not approve of Dayyan-Ashur's huge power in the land. And he doesn't approve of not being the crown prince. And here is the crown prince, Shamshi-Ramman. He's a younger brother of Assurdaninpal. He seems to be wiser, but he's not very popular with the warriors. So, during these 7 years, there are no Assyrian sources. We only get the victor's propaganda afterwards, and we barely get even that. But this is what I think happened, and I may have taken some liberties here, but the fact is that nobody really knows what happened in these 7 years. So Assurdaninpal is tired of everything. Tired of Dayyan-Ashur being there holding control of the army. Tired of not being the crown prince. And he thinks, what would Granddad have done? Well, he would have massacred everybody and taken power. And he is of the line of kings. That maybe, at least in the records, officially the line of kings goes back 1,000 years. And so he seizes power. And this has happened before. Uncles, brothers, sons, etc. have taken power by rebellion, and maybe even Adad-nirari II did this, as we mentioned in the 910s episode. But it's time for Assurdaninpal to rise to power and become the king and massacre all his enemies. So the Assyrian people, the nobles, the army, etc., they like this. And 27 cities declare for Assurdaninpal, including cities like Nineveh and Ashur, the ancient capital. But he does not control Kala, and that's where Shalmaneser III is. So Assurdaninpal has to take Kala and make Dad change his mind, or Dad must die. So Shamshi-Ramman and Dayyan-Ashur sees that this is not very good. We have to do something. They join up. They strengthen Kala's fortifications. And they dig in Kala together with old Shalmaneser III, who is probably like, oh, what's happening? And they're like, oh, don't worry, Shalmaneser, we got this. And they need some sort of propaganda piece to convince the Assyrians that Shamshi-Ramman is the rightful king, and that the army should obey the Turtanu and the rightful king. So they create the Black Obelisk of Assyria. This is a black limestone bas-relief sculpture. It is the most complete Assyrian obelisk ever found. It was discovered in 1846, and it is of course in the British Museum in London, because the British took everything in the 19th century. It is about 2 meters high and half a meter wide. What's that? 7 feet times 1.5 feet. There are 20 reliefs, 5 on each side. You see 10 of them in this picture. There are 5 subdued kings shown in 5 of the reliefs. And I like to look into who those kings were, because there is some useful information there. So the 5 subdued kings was Sual of Gilsanu, that's in northwestern Iran. It was Jehu of Israel, and this is quite contested, and it's also the first depiction of a Hebrew and a Jewish king and a king of Israel ever. So I talk a lot about that in the 840s part 2 episode, so go watch that to learn more about Jehu of Israel. It's also Marduk-zakir-shumi of Suhi and Kalparunda of Patin on the Mediterranean coast. So that makes me wonder, why these 5 kings? There seems to be other more powerful kings that were subdued. Wait, I missed one. The unnamed ruler of Musri. And that's weird, because in the Battle of Karkar video I mentioned that Musri was a member of the League of Kings. And Musri is generally accepted as Egypt, but I believe that's wrong now. I think it's Q. Because there was no pharaoh that went to Assyria to bow before Shalmaneser. But Kate was defeated eventually, the king of Q, in the 830s episode. So I think that Egypt wasn't actually at the Battle of Karkar at this point. So more about Obelisk. On the top of the bottom there are long cuneiform inscriptions. You can see them. That's the small signs there at the top and the bottom. They record the entire annals of Shalmaneser III. All the military campaigns. There are 34 military campaigns recorded, and I've tried to detail them all in this show. Dayyan-Ashur also is a huge actor on the obelisk, so it's very likely that Dayyan-Ashur actually commissioned the obelisk, and that suggests that Dayyan-Ashur is the one calling the shots in Kala, and he is now trying to rally his own army that he has commanded quite a bit and crush Assurdaninpal. And that puts the question there, will Dayyan-Ashur try to become the king, or will he act as the Turtanu under Shamshi-Ramman? Good question. If he becomes the king, the ancient line of kings will end, because he is not related to Shalmaneser. In 823 BC, Shalmaneser dies, is weak and old, and nobody really cares that he dies. We don't know how. I think he died of old age. He could have been murdered, but I don't see anyone gaining anything by that. Shamshi-Ramman claims to be the crown prince, and he probably was. Shalmaneser ruled Assyria from 859 BC to not really to 823 BC. His grasp of power diminished from 833 BC. But he comes down to us as one of the great kings of Assyria. And when I started this, I didn't think he did so many great things. But he is almost as cool as his father, Assurdaninpal II. And I will make a tribute music video to Shalmaneser, just like I did for Assurdaninpal II. But there will actually be a long time before Assyria gets a king who is this powerful. And we must forget, we must look away from the final years and this confusion that is in 823 BC when he dies, because he was a great king. And the next great king will end the ancient line of kings, and he will come later, and he will be known as the Assyrian. So Shamshi-Ramman is sealed up in Kala with his dead father. So what can he really do? The obelisk maybe turned some soldiers over to... but how did he actually see the obelisk? Maybe nobles came to Kala to negotiate, and then they were like, oh wow, great obelisk. But Shamshi-Ramman needs help, and needs more help than he can get from Dayyan-Ashur. So where to turn for help? Wait a minute. To the south, there is a king that owes his power to Shalmaneser III. Remember, Marduk-zakir-shumi of Babylon is king of Babylon only because Shalmaneser went to Babylon and killed his brother and put him on the throne. So Shamshi-Ramman sends a message to Marduk-zakir-shumi, please come, do for me what my father did for you. I am the rightful king of Assyria, and I need you to put me on the throne. And Marduk-zakir-shumi honors his allegiance, his treaty, his pact with Shalmaneser, and Babylon invades Assyria. And it's very likely that the Kassites and the Chaldeans, the tribal kingdoms that had left Babylonia, probably assisted Marduk-zakir-shumi in this, because they get to beat up Assyrians, and they both the Kassites and the Chaldeans, the Kassites are in the kingdom of Namri. They hate the Assyrians at this point. And together with the Babylonian forces, Shamshi-Ramman takes whatever troops he can. It is possible that the troops in the west help Shamshi-Ramman. And together they smash the rebellion. So Shamshi-Ramman is crowned the king of Assyria, and he takes the name of the ancient kings. He's called Shamshi-Adad V. But now there is a Babylonian army in Assyria, and Marduk-zakir-shumi probably wants a little something for his good deeds. Remember what Shalmaneser did when he put Marduk-zakir-shumi on the throne of Babylon. He toured Babylonia, made offerings, sacrifices, and he demanded nothing. But Marduk-zakir-shumi will not do that. So Shamshi-Adad V says, we are even now, right? And Marduk-zakir-shumi says, no, not really. So there is a treaty. This is Marduk-zakir-shumi on the relief. And there are some things in this treaty. A part of this treaty comes down to us, so this is preserved. And it is possible that the new king of Assyria had to marry Marduk-zakir-shumi's daughter, Shamu-Aramat. And this is contested, and we will talk more about the legend of the Assyrian queen, Semiramis, who could then possibly be Shamu-Aramat, the daughter of Marduk-zakir-shumi, in the 810s episode. The treaty also seems to put Assyria in an inferior position to Babylon, almost like a vassal state of Babylon. And Ashur, the main god, the one god of Assyria, is not even mentioned in the treaty, but there are a lot of Babylonian gods mentioned. So Marduk-zakir-shumi does the most out of this situation. He puts Shamshi-Adad V in a bad seat. And is this really wise? You know the Assyrians, right? They are never the ones to hold a grudge. Oh. So what happened to Assurdaninpal, the rebel? Well, we don't know. And this is somewhat surprising, because Shamshi-Adad probably recorded that I took my rebel brother and killed him, but there is no such record. And there is actually Shamshi-Adad V is the one who makes the records here, and it doesn't mention the fate of Assurdaninpal. So it is possible that he escaped, but he's never mentioned again in the sources. And I think this guy could have made a good king of Assyria. Because he had the support, he was a powerful warrior, and maybe he could prevent what is about to happen to the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Another question is, what happened to Dayyan-Ashur? We don't know the Turtanu's fate, and he made the obelisk, he seemed to be ruling Kala, and then he's just gone. He was probably quite old at the time, so could have died of old age. But maybe he was murdered. I could see Shamshi-Adad V telling Marduk-zakir-shumi that, okay, I will sign this treaty, but you have to take out this guy who has too much power. And the power of Dayyan-Ashur, the fact that the Turtanu, a field marshal, could control the armies of Assyria, set a very dangerous precedent. And there will be another more powerful Turtanu quite soon in our story called Shamshi-Ilu. But there is already a very, very powerful noble in the court of Shamshi-Adad V. And he's the Rab-Sake. That's a title. He's the chief of something. I have not been able to deduce what he is the chief of. His name is Mutaris Ashur. If you know what the Rab-Sake actually does, please tell me. Because Mutaris Ashur will appear in the 810s episode as well, and he will hold a position of great power. And he has probably supported Shamshi-Adad V through all of this. And I don't think Dayyan-Ashur could ever have become the king, because it didn't hold the ancient line of kings claim. And it will take a lot for someone to end the ancient line of kings and kill all the descendants of the great kings. This is the line of Tiglath-Pileser I, the line of Ashurnasirpal II. And actually, there is only one man who can end the line. And you will meet him in a while. Of course, I'm talking about the Assyrian. So, while all this is going on, the Manneans become more powerful. This is the kingdom of Manna. It is located around Lake Urmia. That's the lake next to Miandoba there on the map. The Manneans have been around for a little while, but now they grow more powerful, and it is possible that the Persians and the Medes, mountain people of the Zagros mountains, pay tribute to the Manneans. And yes, you will learn a lot more about the Persians and the Medes later in this show. But this also means that the Manneans now have a common border with the growing powerful state of Urartu. So suddenly there are two great states. This is the first really powerful kingdom in the Zagros mountains for a very, very long time, in like 600-700 years. And they are not as powerful as Urartu, but they're close, and it's really bad news for Assyria. Next time, we'll talk about the 810s BC. And the main question then is, what will Shamshi-Adad V do when he consoles his power over the empire? Will he keep the treaty with Marduk-zakir-shumi of Babylonia, or will he do something else? I will release the show on September the 15th of 2014. I do these shows weekly. You can contact me, please do. The details are there in the text. Like, share, subscribe. Please send these videos to people that you know are interested in history, if you like them. Because I want more views, more subscriptions, and because that motivates me. And I need some motivation to go on. So please help out. Thank you for watching.